We stay connected to loved ones across distance and time. Just as technology can bridge distance, our memories bridge generations. Tonight on Grandpa's birthday, we pause to honor the presence of all our ancestors who stay with us as long as we choose to keep them with us. In the African tradition, ancestors and loved ones are honored by the pouring of a libation. So I will do that to get us started using my plant. The Ghanaian symbol of Sankofa symbolizes the importance of learning from the past so that it can be carried into the future. So in the spirit of remembrance, we pour this libation to honor the past so that we may learn from it. We seek to be worthy of the legacy we inherit. We wish everyone to leave more blessed than when they came. Amen. Okay. So what I was thinking we would do first was just tell some stories. Just think about the happy memories that keep Grandpa with us. So I wanted to see what were things that came to mind for you as you thought of the things that you thought of that really made you happy. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go, Mira.
So one of my favorite memories of Grandpa is when I was like 6 or something, and we were at Martha's Vineyard, and he wanted to read to me out loud Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it was just so much fun because he was cracking up the whole time as he skims down the page before he reads it. And so I was just sitting there like laughing along, like I don't even know what's funny, but he's having so much fun. And I looked it up. There was this one point where there's this phrase where someone gets called a donkey's ass, and he just cracked up. He couldn't get through the page. He was having so much fun. And I just remember that everyone was sitting, some people would like gather around as he was reading, because he's such a good storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone would listen to him laugh, and then we'd all laugh too. Started one of my favorite series. I still love that series. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
He loved to read out loud, that was for sure.
Yeah.
He really did. And also Nancy Drew. Who next?
I'll go next. I have actually 2 memories. They're both rather short. The first memory was at our wedding reception when people were doing toasts. And your dad got up and he said, "To the Minter Yuan dynasty," as a toast. Mm-hmm. And I remember how everybody laughed, but I thought it was, I was particularly tickled by your dad's toast. That's a very simple toast. That's all he said.
Yeah.
Everybody sort of applauded, and it was a raucous approval of his toast. Mm-hmm. The second memory, you guys might remember, is when we went to Disney, and Grandpa volunteered to go to be in the show.
Oh, did you just steal Brian's? Or was that what you were going to do, Ryan?
No.
Okay, keep going, then, Dad.
I remembered that suddenly.
Yeah, and they were doing Indiana Jones movie set up, and he had to play one of the Arab street people. So he went down there, and they put on a hat and like he was dressed like an Arab, but he still had his black socks on. And, he had shorts and black socks and his work shoes on. It was the funniest thing to see from Grandpa. And he was absolutely hamming it up on the stage in front of everybody down in Disney. I thought that was just absolutely just wonderful.
Yeah. Oh,
you guys remember that?
Oh, now that you say it, suddenly like comes back. Like, wow.
Yeah, he could be incredibly, incredibly silly. He loved that sort of stuff. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. You want to do one, or Lily, or both?
Yeah, so I have I guess it's sort of like a little suite of memories involving Grandpa driving. You know, because with living with him, we were always driving places. And this is Ohio. And so, you know, I remember a particular time he was driving me, I think, downtown to YOU where I was working, and on the highway, and there's like this clonk, right? I'm like, what's that? And Grandpa goes forward probably another 30 or 40 feet, stops the car, looks out rolls down the window, looks out back, and looks behind him, puts the car into reverse, and backs right up down the highway in the other direction. And here I am in the next seat over. I'm like, what on earth is going on? What just happened? Right? I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, oh, I'm just going back to get that. What is this? So, you know, we hop out of the car. He hopped out of the car, and there I am standing at the side of the highway, and the hubcap has popped off one of the rear wheels. And so he just backed right up to get it. And he's like, let me just, I don't know, stick that in the trunk. And here I am like, what? Wait, what? What on earth was that?
Oh, God. Lily, do you have anything that you think of?
I think the thing that sticks most with me is just the first time I ever heard him tell a story. I can't even quite remember which story it was. I think it was at his high school when someone got pushed out a window.
Right.
Like,
no, that was middle school. Middle school.
Okay.
I think the guy who pushed the other guy out the window is old enough to be in high school.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then he landed on top of the school bus, and therefore only broke his back instead of died.
Well, I could go on for hours in terms of that. I mean, I think my grandfather Samuel was just a great storyteller, and much of what we know about sort of the South and the characters and so forth are really stories from his time. And he used to tell these stories, and of course we all knew that these were incredible exaggerations. You know, I mean, they couldn't possibly be true, and so forth. But I had an amazing experience as an adult. In about 1972 or 73, when my daughter Michelle was about 9 years old, my grandfather, before he died, went back south to Buena Vista and Manchester, Georgia, and so forth, generally every year. And as did my grandmother, perhaps at different times. So as I became a young adult and a parent, that was something I wanted to do. And I would say to my grandmother, you should call me sometime, I'd like to come. And finally, we were living in Massachusetts, and one Wednesday or so, my grandmother called me and said, well, she was going to stay in Manchester for a period longer. My great-grandmother was alive, was in her 90s at that point, and she said, perhaps you'd want to come. And so I decided absolutely we were going to fly down to Atlanta and rent a car and go to Manchester and take Michelle. And I called my dad, who had not been back since he had left the South at 4 or 5 years of age. And he decided, well, maybe this was a great time. Since his mother was there, his grandmother was there, this would have, and then I would be there, and Michelle would be there would be 5 generations. And so we went back. And, I mean, I was just dazzled to see the various places and to hear some of the stories, but to get to one of the example. My grandfather had told this story about clearing a field that then they turned into corn, and about fighting with an alligator or a crocodile and all of these kinds of things, which, you know, would take a half hour. But at any rate, here we are in Buena Vista, Georgia, sitting on the front porch with several older men who were by that time in their 80s, early 90s. And my father's there, and we're all there. And these men said about my dad, well, first of all, your name wasn't Larry. Your name down here, it was Buster, okay? And so they went on about this, and they said, and you know, you're not half the man your daddy was. Now, let me tell you the story about your daddy. And they then proceeded to tell this story about my brother Samuel and his brother Roy. Got home from school early and decided they were going to go fishing, and so they were racing across this broad field and to the Kichigumi Creek, and how he ran, and they were taking off their clothes and so forth to dive up out over the bank and down into the water, and talked about how, you know, he went down and he twisted and turned, he looked down, and they got about 10 feet from the water. They looked down there and they saw their father, Clem. And they said, oh, Lord, you know, if we disturb the water, there's going to be problems. So he talked about how they turned around in the air and came back and hit the bank and started running to pick up their clothes. And he sat down on this log and put on his one shoe, and then he couldn't find the other shoe. And looked again and realized that the crocodile had his shoe. So he wasn't giving up his good shoes down there. So he talks about how he fit and fought with that crocodile or alligator, I don't remember which one it was, all the rest of the afternoon. And he finally got his shoe back and then walked across the road, and his uncle said to him, boy, what you been doing? And he said, I've been, you know, saving my shoe. And he said, I wondered, he said, I looked out over there, and that field has been plowed, so you go get the bushel of corn and go out there and plant the corn. Okay, now this is a great tale. But here were three men sitting on the porch telling this story. And I realized they believed it. They had all told these stories so many times that they could have passed the lie detector test. Okay?
I discovered that was part of the oral history that Dad had done a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, from Alice Walker. To acknowledge our ancestors means that we are aware that we did not make ourselves, that the line stretches all the way back, perhaps to God or to gods. We remember them because it is an easy thing to forget that we are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life, in spite of the pain, the sorrow, is always a measure of what has gone before. Okay, Mira, you can read the first name.
Clem Minter.
Should be Ophelia Thomas.
Samuel Minter.
Yuan Ein Pu.
Bei Yuan.
Margaret Washington Knox.
Larry Minter.
Hao Paul.
Dolly Minter. And then skip to the top of the next column.
Su Fang Yao.
Sun Ling Yao.
Michael Seward.
Moselle Minter.
Jack Huber.
James Yuan.
Delia Davis.
Dorothy Minter.
Sheldon Yuan.
Stephen Minter. Now we have one more little clip.
Oh, you want
would like you to join me in a toast.
We have peach iced tea.
Yes, we went really authentic grandpa style. So, here's
We
to
have
you.
root
What do
beer.
you have?
We have root beer.
That's
Oh,
also
just as
good.
appropriate.
Also good.
I have
Here's
water.
to you, Dad. Happy
Okay.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Happy birthday.
And that's it. I just want to say that neither distance nor death nor anything can break our connection.
Yeah, this is not wonderful, Mom. Michelle.
Well, I love you all. And I'm glad we have each other.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good
Night.
night.
Night.